Hill, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. And really excited to be able to speak to you today as a longtime fan of your work. And, I know you've dipped into so many genres as a filmmaker over the years, but of course, you're entering this world of gangsters with this movie. So, to begin with, I was wondering, what was it about this particular genre that drew you in now at this point?
Um, I mean, I've always loved the genre. Absolutely. It wasn't necessarily the first one that I was drawn to, but I like sort of dipping my toes in all the waters, really, of genre filmmaking for sure. And this one, I don't know, it came up over myself and Charlotte were having sushi one day, and it was kind of like, what if we were to do like a female version of Scarface? And that was in 2018 that conversation took place, and it's like, that's where it was born, the idea of doing a sort of female-led gangster movie, or at least in the world of kind of organized crime of sorts. And then it kind of evolved into what it is now.
Oh, amazing. And I know obviously Charlotte was really heavily involved from a creative standpoint as a co-writer and producer, but
Mm.
as a director, you've obviously cast a lot of actors over the years. So what made her in your mind right to play Scarlett and the Duchess, do you think, for this movie?
I actually think it's kind of the closest character to herself, in that it's an East End girl, and that's what she is. And so I think in a lot of ways it's very similar to her. And obviously when we were creating it, I think a lot of her when it went into the character as well. So yeah, so that's probably the biggest connection I could find.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some fantastic fight scenes and shoot and gun scenes in this movie. And I'm curious for you, what was the biggest challenge of piecing those together in a way that really suited the quite grounded nature of the movie?
The biggest challenge, as is always the challenge, is not having enough time. There's never enough time to do these kind of sequences on an independent film. You'd love to have all the rehearsal and the previs and do it all that kind of way. But what you end up with then is much more of a sort of controlled, sanitized version of it when you're given 2 hours to do a shootout, and it's a case of like, right, we're going handheld on this, and the actors know what they're doing, they know how to handle the firearms, they know their action. Let's just like literally run with it a few times, and you get in there with a couple of handheld cameras and see what we get, and just go hell for leather. And what you get out of that is a real kind of raw, gritty, almost like capturing a documentary style. And then, once I got into the edit, I can piece all that together. But that's kind of a vibe that we got out of this, which I think adds an extra level to it, which is fun.
Yeah, amazing. And when I was speaking to Charlotte yesterday, I mentioned how, there are some really iconic female characters who have led action movies, arguably nowhere near enough. But then when you think of them, they are so iconic, whether it's the Kill Bill movies, Furiosa, Hannah. So to be able
Mhm.
to add to that pantheon with Scarlett, what did that mean to you? And did that add a lot of pressure as well?
It doesn't add pressure because I don't necessarily set out to make an iconic character. It's in the back of your mind that, oh, it would be very nice if it happened, and it still would be. But that's going to be down to the audiences. That's going to be down to the public and their response to the movie. You can't plan for that, but certainly by just creating a character like Scarlett, in this kind of story, then it has every potential, I suppose. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And, I find that, narration in some movies works better than others, but I thought it really suited this one for obviously Scarlett to be able to tell her story. But why was it important for you to add that element to the film, do you think?
I think it was always part of the style of the piece. I mean, I was like massively influenced by things like Goodfellas and stuff like that, and in Casino, which is like has a lot of narration in it, and it just felt like that could be a fun way of getting some stuff across and bringing the character to life, and bringing a sense of her attitude out as well, and a female point of view. Kind of the opening speech about power and cocks or whatever it was. I thought, okay, this is a distinctly female point of view, which is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, surrounding Scarlett, we've got some really great supporting characters and some fantastic actors playing them with Stephanie Beacham, Philip Winchester, Sean Pertwee. What was it like for you to cast those roles? And, they're very specific characters. It almost felt like, they were written for those actors. At least they seem to fit the roles that well as a viewer anyway.
They certainly did, and I mean, I would say that certain actors were in the back of my mind. Like I knew I wanted to work with Sean Pertwee again because I just love working with Sean. It's like getting to work with one of your best mates. It's just amazing. Philip was somebody I've been wanting to work with for some time because years ago I was kind of potentially going to do some strike back with him, but it never worked out. So I always wanted to work with him since then. And then with Stephanie, it was like trying to cast that role. She just, I don't know, it was just she's such an icon for me and my generation. So the chance of getting her in this was just perfect, and she was fantastic. She just eats up the screen. She's brilliant.
I know I don't think anyone will ever expect, I'm not going to spoil it, but what she does to another character in the film, quite a gory scene. I don't think anyone would ever expect that from Stephanie Beacham. So it's an awesome
Well,
moment.
no, exactly, and I think certainly actors of a certain age or whatever, it's like they get offered grandmas and roles like that. It was like this is a very, very different role for her, for any actor. So I think she really got her teeth into it.
Yeah, and of course, on that side of the things with those gangsters, you're into this world of diamonds and smuggling. It's a nice departure because I think it's quite cliched now to go down the drug route or the weapons
Mhm.
route. So, what made you want to explore that world, and did that involve a lot of research for you as well to get to know about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was precisely that. The very first draft of the script was set in the world of drugs and cartels and stuff like that. And when it came to the second draft, I was like, this feels cliched. It feels like we've seen this before. What can we do that's different? And having been in South Africa quite a lot filming and heard a lot about the diamond trade, and then obviously once I thought, that could be an interesting way to go because there's something about the diamond trade that, however dangerous and seedy it gets, it's still like diamonds are still have an appeal to them. There's something glamorous about them no matter what, which is kind of makes the industry all the more kind of polluted. Um, and so I did a bunch of research, met with some people involved in the trade, and tried to get some stories and things out of them. And some of the stuff, and there's a story that is relayed in the film, which is based on a true story, and it's like just like all that kind of stuff is just amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And there's some real hard-hitting moments in the film as well. We see a lot of men being violent towards Scarlett, particularly before she becomes the Duchess. And it's an important part of her story and takes her to where she eventually ends up. But was that quite a hard thing for you and Charlotte to work on together and to shoot those scenes, given, how uncomfortable that could be potentially?
Oh, certainly. I mean, those kind of scenes are never, comfortable. Any violence against women is appalling. So, yeah, just to depict it in any form is still inherently uncomfortable. But, we were surrounded by professionals, amazing stunt team, amazing actors. So there was never any kind of risk or anything like that on set. But, physical risk and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was just training and training and practice and practice and obviously Charlotte works really hard with those sequences as well. So yeah, it's just we just make it as comfortable as on set as possible. So what's on screen is horrendous, but what we do on set is actually quite fun.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, it is such an important part of her story. And I'm curious for you as a storyteller, seeing that transformation of her going from Scarlet to the Duchess, particularly later on in the film, how ruthless
Mhm.
she becomes. What did you really enjoy about exploring that and finding a way to get the character from point A to B in that sense?
Well, I think ever since the start of my career, I'm always interested in how far a character will go to survive. How far a person will go to survive under certain circumstances, and what people can survive as well. And then how far a character will go when you push them far enough, when you take away the thing that they care most about. How far in terms of revenge will they go, and where will they take that? And I thought let's go to some dark places, and she really does come out for blood.
Yeah, awesome. And this past weekend we've just seen Deadpool and Wolverine breaking records, but there is a space for movies like this, thankfully, in theaters. But why do you think it is important to get a movie like this onto the big screen, particularly after COVID, when a lot of smaller movies were just heading straight, to streaming or to digital for a long time?
Because I think independent films are a vital part of the movie making and movie going and movie viewing, and not just the kind of awards bait kind of films, but things like this that are just pure entertainment. That's it's a rollicking good action thriller with a great character, great story, What we have found on we've had a couple of private screenings of it, and what we really found is that women respond to it very strongly. So, I think a lot of women should take their boyfriends along to see this movie. Um, because yeah, I say we need independent cinemas. Where is the next generation of directors going to come from? How we are going to get another Tarantino or a Scorsese or whatever if we don't have independent films out there doing the thing, because that's where they all came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And just while I've got you, I'm a big comic book fan, and I know you've talked before you had some struggles with Hellboy, and there's now a new version coming out, which the trailer, not received the best of responses.
Yeah.
Even the Del Toro movies, people put them on that pedestal, but they weren't really box office hits. Do you think that character maybe just isn't one that works on screen from your experience, or do you think there's maybe someone who could
Maybe
break
not.
the code?
Yeah, I mean, it could be the case that it's not meant for the screen in that sense, in the way that it translates from the comic books. But I love Guillermo's movies. I don't know, I'm not that super loyal to the comic books in the sense that I treat them in their own right. I think they're good movies because Guillermo's an excellent director. So the visually they're stunning, all that kind of stuff. I did my best with I did what I could with what I had
Yeah.
under difficult circumstances. And but even now, I was just down in Spain for a film festival, and I had loads of people coming up to me asking me about Hellboy, and they screened the film there, and so who knows? Maybe it's going to grow a little fan base.
Yeah, well, I think so. Being in that world of comic book movies, I know there are a lot of people who did appreciate a lot about that movie and know that you had the odds stacked against you in a lot of ways. But then something else people I know loved was your Constantine as well. It was short-lived,
Mm,
unfortunately, but Matt Ryan did get to live on as that character a few years later in a couple of
certainly
other
did.
TV shows.
Great. That was fantastic to see. And
Yeah.
again, that was a case of trying to do a an R-rated character in a U-rated show was like it was just impossible. Taking away all his smoking and swearing and drinking and cursing is like, oh, come on, what are we left with? But Matt was brilliant, and I'm so glad that the character went on to live another life.
Yeah. Would you ever return to that comic book world, do you think? Or is maybe you've had your taste now and you're eager to make more movies like this one?
I gladly return with the right material. Absolutely. You know,
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. But I'm glad people are going to see this movie as well. And something that jumped out to me, I know you shot in Tenerife, I think, primarily, and
yes.
very unique kind of setting for the movie, not one I think we necessarily see. So, where did the inspiration for that come from? Because again, I thought it led to some really unique visuals in the film.
Well, I mean, it was always the case that I wanted somewhere that felt like a sort of like a stepping stone from Africa, where the diamonds are going to come from to the rest of the world. And Tenerife presented. I mean, there's a financial incentive. There's a really good tax credit there to go and film there. So that was part of it. Geographically, it felt right for the story, and it just worked on us on so many levels. And we found a great crew there, and a great location. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, cool. And something Charlotte did mention yesterday is she wanted to put part one on the title or chapter one. And she said you had to talk her out of that to obviously, rein in expectations. But do you see franchise potential with this? Because I do really think this is a character people are going to fall in love with.
Sure. I mean, I think there's always a chance that the character could go on. I just thought, let's not be presumptuous about putting it putting it on the film. Um, so let's not hex it. Because I've seen a few films that have done that have deliberately set themselves up as part one, and something goes wrong with them and it doesn't work out. So it's such a shame. Better to do this as a standalone, and then it could go on if necessary. We shall see.
Well, I certainly hope so because I had an amazing time with this film. And like I said, I've been a long time fan of your work, Neil, from The Descent right through to movies like Hellboy, Constantine, and now your recent projects as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat today.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.